The silence that took over the shooting range felt almost sacred. Not a single footstep, not a single word, not a sound. Just wide, stunned eyes locked onto the same target, and the heavy breathing of people who couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The old man, still with the rifle resting in place, didn't say a word. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. He simply pulled the brim of his cap down, looked up at the group around him, and asked in a calm, low voice, "Still think this was luck?" Before the shot, before the stunned faces, before the absolute silence, all they saw in him was just another worker. Hours earlier, the range was buzzing. Young guys laughing loudly, posing for pictures with shiny rifles and brand-new tactical vests. They had style, expensive gear, and that kind of confidence only someone who's never had to prove themselves carries around. Among them were two sons of high-ranking officers, a young tactical influencer, and a group of fresh police academy graduates using the place as their personal stage for validation. Each one trying to outdo the other. Best time, tightest grouping, most impressive post. Off to the side, almost out of sight, was an older man in a dark jacket pushing a small toolbox on a rusty cart, headphones hanging around his neck, thick gloves on his hands, and a faded cap made him look like someone who was just there to work. He stopped near one of the empty benches, wiped it down with a cloth, and checked the hinge on one of the shooting rests. No one paid attention. In fact, most didn't even know who he was. They just assumed he was part of the maintenance crew. A helper. Someone invisible. "Hey, does that guy work here?" one of the kids whispered, chuckling. "Check out his look. Straight out of an 80s movie." The girl with the phone raised her camera and recorded a story, zooming in on him from a distance. "Back from the time machine, huh?" Laughter all around. As far as they were concerned, that place belonged to them, and anyone who didn't fit into their picture-perfect scene was, at best, a joke. No one knew his name, or his past, or what that calm stare was hiding. But when one of them, just to mess with him, invited him to take a shot, everything started to change. The man turned slowly, looked down at the rifle resting in front of him, not a modern piece, but a heavy classic, with signs of long use. Calmly, he replied, "Last time I used one of these, there wasn't an audience." The group laughed again, still convinced it was all a joke. But someone, maybe curious, maybe spiteful, slid around across the table like tossing out bait. "Go on, old man. If you hit it, we'll clap. Miss it, and you go back to your toolbox." His wrinkled finger touched the round. His eyes hardened. And what happened next, no one there was ready for. If this story is already hitting you in the gut, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe, because what comes next is even more powerful. That shot was just the beginning. What no one knew was that the man they now mistook for a janitor had once been the shadow between sound and silence. Decades ago, his name couldn't appear in reports, let alone in headlines. He belonged to a unit so secret, most regular soldiers didn't even know it existed. That sharp gaze of his wasn't trained on some shooting range. It was forged in dense jungles, remote deserts, and operations that were never officially documented. Every line on his face wasn't just the weight of time. It was a map of memories he never shared with a single soul. And even now, in that ordinary morning surrounded by youthful arrogance, his instincts were fully intact. He was watching. The tone in their voices, the body language, the laughter disguised as mockery. Every little detail brought back flashes of a time when he, too, young and brash, had to learn the hard way that respect never comes before silence. But there was a reason he was there, and it wasn't the shot. The shot would be a consequence, not the goal. The real reason went back further, back to an order he refused to follow, to a decision that cost him both his badge and his uniform. He never broke the code, but the code broke him. When his final mission was scrubbed for political reasons, he watched his entire legacy get buried under a classified clause. No medals, no honors, no send-off. That's when he chose to disappear. He vanished from the inner circles, from the records, from the ceremonies. He didn't want to be remembered for half the truth. He'd rather be forgotten entirely, until he found, in that quiet little range, a place where he could just listen to the sound of metal being cleaned, the wind moving between the targets, and memory whispering softly to him. But that day, Everything sounded different. The hurried steps of youth on concrete, loud laughs, the obnoxious echo of videos being recorded. That noise almost drove him away, but something made him stay. Maybe it was the way they mocked him, like he was just a background character in their world, that stirred something long buried deep inside. When they laid the round in front of him, waiting for him to miss so they could make him the punchline of some viral clip, he didn't see it as a challenge. He saw it as an opening. His fingers touched the round with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times before. But this time, slower. His body didn't respond the way it used to, and he knew it. Time takes its toll. Aim sharpens. But spirit, that doesn't fade. As he slid the round into the chamber, flashes from the past cut through him like quick edits. A silent jungle, a countdown over radio static, the pulse in his finger just before the decisive shot that stopped a tragedy. No one there knew that same finger had once saved lives. That same eye had read terrain just by watching the dust move. That same man had once been the final option in places that didn't even exist on a map. And in that moment, surrounded by youthful arrogance, doubt started to creep in. One of the young cops glanced sideways, whispering something. The girl recording stopped laughing, just in case. Maybe it was instinct. The whole mood of the range felt different. The old man adjusted the stock against his shoulder, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes for a brief moment, not out of hesitation, but out of respect for what he was about to do. And then he pulled the trigger. The sound of the shot wasn't like the others. It didn't echo with that hollow ring that lingers in your ears without leaving a mark. It was sharp, precise, final. An invisible line ripped through the air and cut across the range as if it knew exactly where it needed to end. For a moment, no one moved. The silence was so abrupt that even the wind seemed to pause in respect. The phones, which had been recording mockingly just seconds before, now hung frozen in the air, as if waiting for an explanation for what had just happened. The old man exhaled slowly, his shoulders pulling back like someone closing a sacred ritual. He gently set the rifle down without any rush, then adjusted his cap as if he were just finishing up another shift. One of the young men walked hesitantly toward the far end of the range. His eyes showed that uneasy mix of doubt and panic. The target that had been a joke moments ago now bore a single hole, dead center, almost impossible to pull off, even with assisted aiming. The mark was clean, symmetrical, dead on. The kind of shot that requires more than just skill. It takes emotional control, command of timing, and something no shooting school can teach: history. The whispers started to ripple through the group. That was luck, right? There's no way he could see that target from here. Someone must have marked it before. Are you sure he used that old rifle? The confusion was clear, but so was the embarrassment. The girl who had been filming looked at her video and pinched the screen to zoom in. There it was, clear as day. He wasn't shaking, didn't hesitate, and took the shot while everyone else was still laughing. There was no denying it. That hadn't been luck. That was precision. As disbelief spread through the group, one of them, a young woman who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. She walked slowly toward the old man, taking off her protective glasses. The others called her back, but she ignored them. She stopped in front of him and asked, with no sarcasm and no fear, "Who are you really?" The question hung in the air like she had triggered something no one had ever dared to touch. He didn't answer right away. He just locked eyes with her, as if weighing the depth of her curiosity. Maybe he wasn't ready to tell. Or maybe he'd been waiting years for someone to ask it with that kind of sincerity. He took off his cap, ran a hand through his gray hair, and then, for the first time, allowed a slight smile to form. "You won't find my name on Google or any wall of honor, but I can show you what I've done, if you've got the patience to listen." She nodded, sitting beside him at the empty bench. While the others kept their distance, she was the only one to cross that invisible line between arrogance and understanding. And there, with the sun sinking behind the horizon and the smell of gunpowder lingering in the breeze, he decided to open the first chapter of his truth. It started many years ago, in a place where missing the first shot meant you never made it home. He didn't speak like a hero or a victim. Every sentence that left his mouth carried the weight of someone who had seen more than he should, felt more than anyone could bear, and buried it all in a place no one could reach. He shared that the last time he fired a weapon under orders was nearly 30 years ago, during a silent mission in a country he wasn't allowed to name. He was part of an advanced recon unit, men who slipped in days before operations began and rarely came back on the same helicopters as everyone else. They went in first, came out last, and sometimes didn't come out at all. On that mission, he saw something he couldn't ignore: a bad call, a rushed command, an order that, if followed, would have led to the deaths of innocent civilians. So he made a choice. He disobeyed. The silence that followed that confession was thick. The young woman, who had been listening so intently, felt the weight of what he'd carried all those years. He explained that he stopped a massacre. He saved lives. But when he came back, the report was rewritten, the operation was rebranded on paper, and he was quietly encouraged to retire. No medal, no ceremony, no recognition. What they gave him was a check, a request to keep quiet, and a polite warning. It's best if you don't talk about this to anyone. So he vanished, traded the field for tools, swapped a rifle for silence, and found refuge in the forgotten corners where no one asked questions. As he spoke, her eyes never left his. She didn't see an old man. She saw someone whole, someone real, a human being carrying wounds that never healed because they were never even seen. So when he finally stopped talking, maybe bracing for judgment or a hollow response, all she said was, "People need to hear this. They need to know who you are." He smiled, but his eyes were sad. "Who cares?" he replied. "Everyone's chasing the spotlight these days, but no one wants to hear what's hiding behind it." That's when she stood up, took her phone, opened the video she'd recorded earlier, the shot, and with hands steady, she started recording again, but this time with a different purpose. She turned the camera toward him and said, "This man doesn't work here. He's not just background noise. He's a veteran, the kind you only hear about in movies. Today, he made a shot none of us could explain. But the truth isn't about the shot. It's what he carries behind it. And that, the world needs to hear." She posted the video right then and there. No filters, no cuts, no flashy caption. Just the raw truth, the way he told it. One by one, the others in the group started to come closer, not with sarcasm, but with a quiet uncertainty in their eyes. And when the old man stood up from the bench, adjusted his cap one more time, and walked toward the exit, something inside that shooting range had changed. What looked like just another day was now the beginning of something none of them saw coming. By the next day, the video had already passed 300,000 views. And it wasn't because of the shot, it was because of the story. Comments were pouring in from all over the country. People claimed they had served with him in the past. Others said they recognized the codename he used in the field. Some swore they'd heard whispers of that legendary shot before, always told like a myth, a warning among soldiers that true skill doesn't always come with a shiny new uniform. The truth he never tried to broadcast was now spreading on its own, like an echo finally finding walls to bounce off. For the first time in decades, the silence he carried was no longer a burden, but a sign of respect, coming from the very society that once forgot him. A few days later, the shooting range felt different. It wasn't just the crowd of curious onlookers, reporters, and old veterans who came to see him. It was the atmosphere. The same group that once mocked him now stood quietly together, watching, listening. The young man who had challenged him was one of the first to approach. No sarcasm, no pride, just open hands and a sincere look. "Would you train us, sir?" The question hung heavy in the air. It wasn't just about learning to shoot. It was a deeper ask, for something no modern gear can provide: discipline, honor, and the ability to listen. He didn't answer with words. He simply nodded and walked to the bench, picked up his old headset, the one he always wore when he thought no one noticed, and placed it carefully over his ears. He adjusted the rifle on the table, not like a military instructor, but like a man who understood that time teaches more than any manual ever could. One by one, they lined up behind him, and as they watched his steady, deliberate, measured movements, they started to realize they were witnessing something that couldn't be bought, only absorbed. The young woman's video kept gaining traction online, and with it, the impact grew. People sent letters, posted tributes, searched for more pieces of his story. But he remained there, same spot, same calm presence, as if he never needed applause to feel whole. When someone asked why he agreed to train the very people who humiliated him, he answered simply, because now they're ready to listen. And just like that, no speeches, no spotlight, that old man who once blended into the background became a symbol, not for the glory of his past, but for the quiet strength of someone who never let go of what truly mattered. Because in the end, your aim might fade, your eyes might lose focus, but what you carry inside, that's something time can't touch. If this story inspired you as much as it inspired us to share it, drop a comment below and tell us what struck you the most. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Real heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear silence, carry honor in their actions, and teach simply by being who they are. And if this one hit hard, just wait till you see the next.